This is a macro view of a common button mushroom rapidly wilting and collapsing into itself. Like every fruiting fungus on Earth, its primary biological imperative is the successful release and dispersal of spores into the environment. Yet, if you compare this fragile, rapidly decaying grocery store produce to a Ganoderma bracket fungus growing on a tree trunk, the physical difference is staggering. One bruises if you handle it roughly, the other feels like a piece of solid mahogany. This presents a biological paradox. Two distinct organisms sharing the exact same imperative of spore dispersal possess completely antithetical physical properties. The soft agaricus mushroom relies on an ephemeral evolutionary strategy. It is designed for a rapid, explosive bloom, dropping its spores immediately over just a few days before it rots away. Ganoderma utilizes a perennial strategy. It evolved to survive entirely exposed to harsh outdoor elements for months or even years. This stark disparity in physical density is a direct manifestation of differing evolutionary ecologies. To live longer, the organism demands an entirely different approach to microscopic cellular engineering. Evolution has hardened the Ganoderma bracket into a specialized long-term spore factory. Executing this perennial strategy requires the organism to constantly resist multiple threats: pounding heavy rain, intense gravitational stress, and bacterial decay over long durations of time. Understanding exactly how it achieves this remarkable resilience requires deconstructing the organism down to the microscopic cellular level. A fungus's intended lifespan strictly dictates its physical engineering. A long-term survivor must utilize different biological building blocks than an organism meant to vanish in a week. At the cellular scale, all fungal bodies are built from microscopic biological frets called hyphae. This cross-section of soft mushroom tissue features a monomytic hyphal system built entirely from thin, vertically aligned tubes called generative hyphae. These water-filled tubes are engineered for rapid growth, offering zero structural stability. Notice how they easily buckle under pressure. Because a monomytic structure lacks internal reinforcement, the resulting soft tissue collapses, bruises, and dries out the moment it faces physical stress or direct sunlight. Ganoderma constructs a complex three-part architecture, a Trimitic Hyphal System. We start with a thin generative hyphae branching into a void. Next, thick, rigid, unbranched tubes slide into place alongside them. These skeletal hyphae are characterized by exceptionally thick outer walls. Chemically, these walls are heavily reinforced with extreme concentrations of chitin and complex sugars known as glucans. These skeletal hyphae function as biological timber beams, giving the bracket its woody density. But beams separate if not locked in place. To solve this, highly intricate, tightly branching threads rapidly snake out to wrap and lock the tubes into a solid knot. This final layer consists of binding hyphae, incredibly tough, deeply branching threads. They operate like biological rebar or concrete mesh, weaving the entire fungal body into a dense interwoven matrix. This specific trimitic weave dictates the organism's physical reality. This is why Ganoderma achieves the density of solid mahogany, refusing to rot in the rain or collapse under its own weight. Moving from the internal cellular matrix, we find structural divergence at the bottom of the mushroom, on the exterior spore-releasing surface known as the hymenophore. The geometric shape of this surface is directly tailored to the amount of time the mushroom intends to remain active in the forest. This 3D wireframe model displays the traditional gill structure utilized by soft mushrooms like agaricus, featuring thin, flat, parallel vertical sheets hanging downward. This flat geometry provides an expansive surface area, optimized for rapid spore release. But gills are structurally fragile. Under heavy rain or strong wind, these vertical sheets easily warp, stick together, and tear, trapping spores inside. Ganoderma relies on an alternative geometry, the polypore architecture. The hanging sheets are replaced by a dense, solid block composed of millions of tightly packed, vertical microscopic tubes. This forms a vast honeycomb of hollow vertical shafts, measuring a microscopic 100 to 200 micrometers in diameter. This honeycomb geometry offers perpendicular strength. Even under heavy vertical pressure, the tubular structure remains completely rigid and perfectly distributes the load. This perpendicular stability distributes gravitational weight and physical stress across the entire bracket as it expands and thickens over the years. The second geometric advantage is microclimate protection. By sinking the spore-producing cells deep inside these microscopic tubes, the fungus physically isolates them from ambient wind and rain, maintaining stable internal humidity regardless of the weather outside. The polypore honeycomb design is the functional structural geometry for ensuring safe, continuous spore discharge. Mature spores simply drop straight down the protective shafts to catch gentle air currents over a span of years. Even with a dense internal weave and optimized pore geometry, any structure left completely exposed outdoors for years faces environmental degradation. This sweeping macro shot reveals the final defensive adaptation seen on prominent perennial species like Ganoderma lucidum, a high-gloss shellacked cap. This glossy sheen is a hard physical lacket shell, a structural feature rather than simple external moisture. The armor is constructed by the pileopellis, a specialized, dense outer layer of cells. Looking at a microscopic cross-section, the uppermost cell layer secretes a matrix of resinous, waxy compounds to form an impermeable barrier. This natural lacquer traps internal water, preventing evaporation. In reverse, it shields the core flesh by deflecting rain and parasitic fungi. Finally, the hardened resin acts as a rigid mechanical deterrent, limiting the ability of forest insects to chew through the surface and destroy the vital spore chambers below. By combining resins, waxes, and triterpenoids, the fungus constructs an architectural fortress. The internal structures remain secure, allowing the spore factory to operate over multiple seasons in hostile environments. This three-column graphic summarizes the biological model that allows Ganoderma to achieve perennial survival. The longevity relies on three biomechanical pillars: the trimitic cellular matrix, the honeycomb pore geometry, and the waterproof triterpenoid crest. Contrast this physical rigidity with the fragile, monomitic, gill-based structure of a soft button mushroom. The physical capabilities are different because their ecological strategies demand it. Ganoderma requires this physical permanence to fulfill its specific ecological role as a deep wood decayer. Breaking down resistant materials like lignin and cellulose takes time. The bracket's robust architecture ensures the fungus remains safely anchored into its host tree while the internal digestion processes take place over the long term. The physical contrast between ephemeral produce and persistent brackets demonstrates how microscopic architecture aligns with ecological requirements. The cellular design is precisely calibrated to the specific environmental stresses the organism is built to endure.